At a lavish estate, a party is underway. Beneath glittering chandeliers, the high society of the kingdom gathers, but one young lady seems unimpressed by the company. She turns away from the crowd, drawn to the spread of desserts. She takes a single delicate bite, and with a chilling look, she makes a demand. Her attendant freezes in place, as she insists the chef be brought to her at once. In the kitchens, the staff already knows what's coming. Whispers fill the hall about her cruel reputation. "This is Alicia Oslinde, the infamous Ice Queen." The chef, trembling, presents himself before her. She looks down, her voice laced with ice. She questions his audacity for serving such a tiny dish. The poor man can only stare in horror. He immediately drops to the floor, begging for forgiveness. But other guests note the food was perfectly fine. It seems she's just looking for a reason to be cruel. But just as she's about to pass judgment, someone steps forward. A young man in a butler's uniform. He introduces himself as her servant, Gray. He offers to translate her less than eloquent words, a suggestion she doesn't seem to appreciate. He calmly explains she had no intention of scolding the chef. One of the guests is outraged by his interruption. He insists she was clearly looking for a fight, but Gray simply holds up a hand, ready to reveal the truth. With a knowing smile, he begins his translation. He claims she was actually thanking the chef for the delicious meal. The guests can hardly believe what they're hearing. A wave of shock ripples through the crowd. Alicia, meanwhile, can only blush in silent fury. The entire hall erupts in confused whispers. Gray continues, reinterpreting her threat as a desire to hire him. He insists she only wanted to convey her praise. But the outraged guest is shaking with indignation. He refuses to accept such a ridiculous excuse. Another noble agrees, saying there's a limit to these lies. Unfazed, Gray presents his evidence, a nearby table. He explains that each table was set with 5 portions of food. The guest sees only empty plates, demanding to know the point. Gray notes that Alicia, having no friends, sat entirely alone, and that she single-handedly ate all 5 servings. The room is stunned into absolute silence. Even the chef realizes he completely misunderstood her intent. Gray then formally offers the man a position with the Oslinde family. Before a flustered Alicia can process this and pulls him back, he cheerfully tells the chef they'll sort out the details later. The chef can only stare, muttering her name in disbelief. Alicia quietly asks Gray just what he thinks he's doing, but the chef, now overjoyed, bows in deep gratitude. Gray translates her flustered silence as a compliment. Mortified, she shouts that it's time to go home. As they walk away, she reminds him of how he embarrassed her. But our boy just plays innocent. She turns back, still a little confused by his actions, and with a blush, she thanks him, forbidding him from ever leaving her side. This is the story of an awkward, cold-blooded lady, and the servant who once knew only poverty and tears. We flash back to Gray's childhood, where his older sister was already practicing how to speak like a noble. She dreamed of marrying a prince to escape their life, a future that our young boy was more than happy to share. She believed understanding a woman's heart was the key, and she had some very specific advice on the matter. Her first rule: never lie to a woman. Always be direct and honest with your feelings. A lesson that young Gray took completely to heart. His sister, flustered by the praise, tries to hide her smile. She vows to train him into a respectable young man. Looking back, Gray realizes her advice was questionable at best. Years passed in the desolate slums where they lived. One day, an older Gray returns home from work. He finds his father drinking from a bottle. The man greets him with a drunken slur. Years after his sister left, nothing had changed. Gray notices the expensive bottle and demands an answer. His father just holds it up, playing dumb. He reveals he found the money Gray had been saving. The money for night school, now gone to pay off debts. The man feigns remorse, mocking his son's dreams. As Gray's hopes crumble, his father continues to taunt him. He calls it a necessary lesson in reality. But Gray has had enough of his lessons. He unleashes years of pent-up frustration and puts the old man down for the count. With his dream shattered, a new resolve hardens his gaze. He leaves that life behind him and finds himself in the city, far from the slums. With nothing but an empty stomach, he realizes he ran away with no plan at all. He joins a line of men looking for any work they can find. A notice catches his eye: a cleaning job at a duke's villa. It's an opportunity he can't afford to miss. Soon he finds himself in the Oslinde family's butler office. He stands nervously, hoping to be hired. The head butler, Maya Lorix, listens to his story. She notes that his circumstances are quite unusual. She asks if his tale of woe was meant to earn her pity. Her gaze is sharp, cutting right through him. Gray quickly denies any such intention. He simply says he's not very good at hiding things. Her expression shifts, intrigued by his honesty. A silent understanding passes between them. She then asks if he's prepared to be her subordinate. Gray seems confused by the obvious question. Suddenly, she closes the distance between them. Her eyes lock onto his. A faint smile plays on her lips. She gestures to herself pointedly and asks if he has any issue working under a woman. Our boy, bless his heart, asks if that's supposed to be a problem. She's left completely speechless by his response. He adds that she's so pretty he might get distracted, a compliment that leaves her blushing and flustered. Regaining her composure, she says they're short-staffed anyway. Gray can hardly believe it. He's been hired. Maya explains that this entire villa was built for one person, the Duke's daughter, Lady Alicia Osland. But before Gray can officially start, she has one final warning. It's about the young lady he'll be serving directly. She tells him that Alicia is notoriously difficult to please, a concept that seems to fly right over our boy's head. As Maya leads him toward his new life, she asks if serving a difficult master will be a problem. Gray, meanwhile, is just happy to have a job, hoping to last a month. He eagerly reaches for his new uniform, and for the first time in his life, he's wearing clean, respectable clothes, a far cry from the dirt-stained rags of the slums. Just then, a voice calls out to the new recruit. Gray turns to see who it is. A senior servant introduces himself as Mori, his new instructor. The two shake hands, ready to begin his training. Mori tells him the first lesson is simple: window cleaning. He demonstrates the proper technique with practiced ease. Gray watches from the other side, taking it all in. Mori is surprised by how quickly he picks it up. Gray explains he's done this kind of work before, impressing his senior. He can't believe his past hardships are finally paying off. Weeks later, Mori notes his progress, suggesting he's a good fit. But in the background, two maids gossip and laugh at him. Gray is completely taken aback by their open mockery. Mori sighs, admitting most of the staff here are like that. The maids say they don't mind a little gossip as long as the work gets done. Gray wonders why such a grand estate has such a toxic atmosphere. Mori leans in, ready to spill the secret. He whispers that the truth is, but their conversation is cut short by a sudden shout. Both of them look up, startled by the commotion. A vase tumbles from a nearby table, crashing hard against the floor and shattering into a dozen pieces. Mori rushes forward, asking if everyone is all right. It's the two gossiping maids, one of them now on the floor. Gray can only stare, wondering what just happened. And then, a figure steps into view. A young lady with an icy, commanding presence. It's the Duke's daughter, Alicia Oslinde. Gray is completely captivated by her appearance. He realizes this must be the difficult master he was warned about. The maids immediately start apologizing profusely, but Alicia silences them with a single, dismissive gesture. Her cold response leaves them speechless. She tells them to forget the mess and just leave her sight. She then asks if they have any complaints about her order. Terrified, the two maids practically flee the scene. With the matter settled, she turns to leave without another word. Gray watches her walk away, a little stunned. Mori tells him they should be the ones to clean up the mess. Alicia stops, turning back with an annoyed huff. Mori sighs, remarking on how difficult she always is. He explains that she was harsh, but not for the reason Gray thinks. Gray realizes she never once mentioned the broken vase. He picks up a shard, thinking she might actually be kind. Mori completely misreads the room, asking if she's his type. Gray explains that she never blamed them for the vase, which was worth a fortune. Mori points out that Alicia must have noticed the maid's injured ankle, and Gray realizes her outburst was just a very clumsy order to get it treated. Mori is still skeptical, finding it hard to believe the Ice Queen could be so kind. Gray agrees her delivery is terrible, but he's starting to see the truth. He thinks to himself that she's just like his own sister. Mori just shrugs it off, ready to clean up the mess. Meanwhile, Alicia walks away, lost in her own thoughts. She stops for a moment, pulling something from her dress. With a look of resolve, she prepares to go back. But she storms off instead, muttering about how annoying that new servant is. Around the corner, the two maids are still complaining about her. But their words reach the ears of the very person they're talking about. Alicia stands frozen, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Suddenly, a voice calls out her name. It's Gray, holding a broom. Startled by his appearance, she trips and drops a small object. Mortified, she turns and practically flees down the hall. Gray can only watch her go, calling out her name. His eyes fall upon the item she left behind. He stoops down to pick it up. It's a small tin of healing salve. The final piece of the puzzle clicks into place for him. Later, Gray and Mori are outside trimming the hedges. Mori casually mentions that Alicia is always at the estate these days. He then drops a bombshell. She's been suspended from the academy. Gray is stunned by the news. Mori continues the gossip train, explaining she's also banned from high society. Apparently, she made another noble's daughter cry years ago, and her reputation is so bad, dozens of suitors have literally run for the hills. Gray listens to all this, his concern for the young lady growing. Mori adds that those suitors find new partners instantly, fueling rumors that Alicia is happy to be alone. Mori suddenly remembers an urgent task and dashes off, leaving Alicia alone with the new recruit, much to her annoyance. But Gray greets her with a blindingly cheerful smile. She looks him over, recalling his name. Gray is absolutely thrilled that she remembered him. She tries to act cool, saying she learns all her servants' names. Gray immediately praises her for being so considerate. His earnestness leaves her blushing and completely flustered. She asks him why he's smiling so much. He stops, wondering if he's made her uncomfortable. She clarifies that she just wants to know the reason. He explains that talking to someone so beautiful just makes him happy. A compliment so direct, it leaves the Ice Queen completely stunned. And our boy isn't finished yet, Alicia stammers, trying to process what he just said. Gray just gives her a knowing smile. He points out that she wouldn't learn their names if she truly looked down on them. His simple logic leaves her speechless. He bows, saying he feels blessed to serve someone so beautiful inside and out. Alicia's brain seems to be short-circuiting from the praise. She accuses him of just having fun at her expense, but then admits that no one has ever spoken to her like that before. Overwhelmed, she orders him to stop slacking and get back to work. She turns away, trying to hide her beet-red face, but she stops, adding that the estate has been cleaner since he arrived. She tells him to continue working hard for her. Gray happily agrees, his smile never wavering. Later that night, Alicia tosses and turns in her bed. She seems to be having a rather restless sleep. As she dreams, she whispers Gray's name. Her restless night is filled with thoughts of him, as she confides in her teddy bear. The bear, in her mind, asks if that's all, much to her annoyance. It even dares to ask if she's taken a liking to the new servant. A question that leaves her blushing furiously. She tells her stuffed confidant to shut up, shaking it wildly. But quietly, she wonders if she'll see him again tomorrow. A narrator's voice tells us that he does not yet know. As Gray finishes his chores for the day, he looks back at the villa, hoping he'll get to see Lady Alicia again. For this is the story of how he would come to be doted on by the Ice Queen. We get a quick recap of the story so far. Gray's dream of night school was crushed by his own father. He left his old life behind in a fit of rage, and was hired by the head butler, Maya Lorix. It was there that he met the infamous Alicia Oslinde. Back in the present, Gray is stunned by a new development. Maya informs him that a ball is being held tonight. He can't believe that Lady Alicia is expected to attend. Maya explains it's for her social rehabilitation, and Gray will be her supervisor. He asks why he was chosen over more experienced staff. In a flashback, Alicia demands that Gray be the one to accompany her. Maya explains that the young lady herself strongly recommended him. Gray is absolutely ecstatic to hear the news. Maya, ever the professional, is completely unmoved by his fanboy moment. Her deadpan stare quickly brings him back to reality. She leans in with a serious expression and warns him not to bring shame upon the family name. Later, their carriage arrives at a grand estate. Alicia stands ready, looking stunning in her evening gown, and Gray gently offers her his hand. She takes his hand, reminding him to be on his best behavior. They step into the grand, echoing ballroom. While Gray is awestruck, Alicia is already unimpressed. She warns him to act like a proper servant and not shame her. Our boy eagerly promises to do his very best. His sheer enthusiasm seems to catch her off guard. She walks ahead with renewed confidence, and he follows dutifully. But their arrival immediately draws unwanted attention. Two nobles can't help but notice how beautiful she's become. It seems the Ice Queen has some admirers after all. Gray realizes she's more than just a difficult master. She is, after all, the infamous Alicia Oslinde, but their quiet entrance is quickly interrupted. Alicia looks down, already bored with the encounter. Two other young ladies approach, one smug and one timid. Alicia greets them with her usual icy demeanor. The smug one, Limris, immediately starts mocking her. Alicia simply turns her back, refusing to engage, a move that only infuriates her rival. The timid girl, Farah, looks on in fear. But Alicia suddenly grabs her, pulling her close. Farah can only stare, terrified by the sudden attention. Alicia calls her a country bumpkin with no sense of style. The poor girl is left completely stunned by the insult. Alicia then offers to introduce her to a proper stylist. A backhanded compliment if there ever was one. The harsh words immediately bring Farah to tears. The surrounding guests look on with disapproval. Limris explodes in anger, defending her friend's simple tastes. But Alicia remains perfectly calm, watching the scene unfold. The guests whisper among themselves, cementing her reputation as the Ice Queen. But Alicia's expression remains as cold as ever. Limris comforts the crying girl, promising she's on her side.
She claims to be the only one who truly understands her.
From the sidelines, Gray watches the scene unfold. Farah sobs that she hates Alicia. She cries that she's always being made fun of, and she demands that Alicia never speak to her again. For a moment, Alicia's composure seems to crack, but she simply tells Farah to do as she pleases. The heartbroken girl can only nod in agreement, but Gray has seen enough of this misunderstanding. He steps forward, calling for them to wait. Farah looks up, startled by his sudden interruption. Limris glares, annoyed by the servant's audacity. Even Alicia seems surprised by his intervention. The entire ballroom turns to see what the commotion is about. Limris demands to know what a mere servant is doing, but Gray addresses the entire room, announcing they've all misunderstood. Farah can only stare in utter confusion. The guests murmur, wondering what he could possibly mean. Alicia looks on, her expression a mix of annoyance and dread. And so begins another session of Gray's miraculous misinterpretation. She tries to stop him, asking what on earth he's saying. He explains what Lady Alicia truly wanted to convey, rephrasing her insult into a heartfelt offer to find a dress worthy of Farah's beauty. He concludes his translation with a confident smile. Both Farah and Limris are left completely speechless. A wave of disbelief washes over the entire crowd. Their stunned faces fill the silent ballroom. Limris is the first to recover, shouting that his explanation is utter nonsense. But Gray simply turns his attention to the still confused Farah. He asks if Limris was the one who chose her dress and makeup for the evening. Farah stammers, admitting that her friend did indeed pick out her entire outfit. Gray continues, guessing she's often hurt by comments on her appearance. The girl is stunned, wondering how a total stranger could know that. She glances back at Limris, a flicker of doubt crossing her face. Limris explodes, telling him to shut up and stop making her look like a villain. Another noble chimes in, insisting that Alicia is clearly the one at fault. Limris agrees, declaring that Alicia is a universally hated person. She rants about how many people Alicia has hurt with her bluntness. The other noble adds that anyone who defends her must be out of their mind. The crowd murmurs in agreement, still not quite buying Gray's story. Farah, however, remains silent, lost in her own thoughts. Gray calmly states that if Lady Alicia needs an ally, he is right here. He vows to deliver her true feelings and prove she's not the Ice Queen. The three young ladies can only stare, caught in the middle of his bold declaration. But Alicia has had enough, shouting for Gray to stop at once. He turns back, surprised by her sudden outburst. She tells him to know his place, warning that he's shaming the Oslinde name. Our boy is left completely speechless by her command. Alicia then turns to the other guests, her expression unreadable. She bows deeply, apologizing for the scene and telling them to enjoy the party. And with that, she turns and walks away from the crowd. Gray can only watch her go, calling out her name in vain. Limris just scoffs, watching the drama unfold with a smug look. Alicia storms out of the ballroom and into the night. She stops in the quiet gardens, finally alone with her thoughts. Gray catches up and immediately drops to the ground, begging for forgiveness. She berates him for embarrassing her yet again, as he sweats, awaiting his fate. But she turns, declaring she'll teach him how a servant should act. Gray can only look up in confusion. She orders him to stay by her side from now on. He asks if this means he's to be her personal attendant. A deep blush spreads across her face. She demands to know if he has a problem with that. She then holds out her hand. Our boy is once again completely lost. She explains that since he ruined her night, he'll be her dance partner. And she adds that she hates repeating herself. Gray still seems to be processing this sudden turn of events, so she grabs his hand, pulling him to his feet. He's left blushing and flustered in her arms. She smiles, teasing him to try a little harder, a command that only makes him more flustered, and so they dance alone in the moonlight. Later that night, Alicia recounts the evening to her teddy bear. She complains about the awful party she was forced to attend, but she can't hide her giddy smile. In her mind, the bear asks if Gray saved her when she was about to cry. It even compares him to a prince she was waiting for. She dismisses the idea, reminding herself he's just a commoner. But her blush tells a very different story. She wonders if maybe he could be her person of destiny. The thought sends her kicking her feet in a fit of joy. She thinks about how that naughty servant has stirred her heart, and decides she'll have to educate him thoroughly tomorrow. Miles away, Gray suddenly feels a chill run down his spine. He has no idea where that ominous feeling came from. He just grabs his head, convinced he's messed everything up again. He realizes only now the gravity of his actions at the ball. He feels there must have been a smarter way to handle things. He worries he only made Lady Alicia's reputation worse, but he knows that deep down, she's an incredibly kind person. A narrator reminds us that before this, his life was anything but kind. We flash back to the slums where he was ordered to beg or steal. He was constantly looked down on and pushed aside, forced to do backbreaking labor just to survive. But now he's found a new resolve. to become Lady Alicia's strength. A resolve that's immediately interrupted by the lady herself. She grabs his hand, dragging him off without explanation. Their destination, the head butler's office. Maya looks less than thrilled about Alicia's latest demand. Alicia declares she'll personally train this impertinent cleaner, and our boy is caught right in the middle of a power struggle. Maya sighs, already aware of the drama at the ball thanks to a report that Gray himself apparently wrote, much to his regret. Alicia insists she can't just abandon such a pitiful servant. Maya calmly suggests they could just fire him. Problem solved. But Alicia argues that a true noble must show patience, a statement that earns her a synchronized deadpan stare. She dares them to say what they're thinking. They both wisely decide to say nothing at all. Maya relents, admitting Gray is diligent and his heart is in the right place. Gray is touched by her words of support. But her support comes with a very firm condition. She's horrified by the idea of him being with Alicia all the time. Alicia just scoffs, telling Maya she's stuck in her old-fashioned ways. Gray realizes this is the closest Alicia has ever been to having a friend. An idea she immediately scoffs at, of course. Alicia denies the idea with a flustered, over-the-top reaction. Maya calmly proposes a test to settle the matter once and for all. The first trial is simple enough. Preparing a cup of tea, a task Gray has only ever seen the maids perform. With a slightly trembling hand, he begins to pour. He presents the finished cup, hoping for the best. Maya leans in, inspecting his work with a critical eye. She takes a single, deliberate sip. Gray waits nervously for the verdict, and is immediately hit with a tidal wave of brutal criticism. She concludes that he is nowhere near ready for the position. Alicia, meanwhile, fumes about this unwanted interference. She steps in, declaring she'll be the one to train him personally. Our boy can only watch, caught in the crossfire. But Maya simply moves on to the next test, a decision that leaves Alicia chewing on her fan in frustration. They move to another part of the villa. Maya explains the next duty, helping the lady dress, a thought that sends Gray's mind into a complete tailspin. But she clarifies his task is much simpler. Brushing her hair, he nervously approaches Alicia, who is already seated. She leans forward, telling him to do a good job. The proximity leaves our boy blushing and flustered. He gently begins to brush her long, silky hair. He can't help but notice its pleasant scent. He snaps back to reality, with Maya watching his every move. He tells himself he absolutely has to focus. Alicia quietly compliments his skill. Gray realizes his experience with his sister is paying off again. He finds a small tangle and gently works it free. The proximity and his warm breath on her ear leave Alicia completely flustered. He gently continues to work the brush through her hair. Maya admits his basic technique seems to be fine, but she suddenly closes the distance, startling Gray from behind. She leans in, asking why he's so stiff and if he's forgotten his training. She whispers that a servant who gets this flustered is useless. Alicia, red-faced and annoyed, demands to know what Maya is doing to Gray. She stands, declaring that at this rate he'll never be ready to serve her. Maya calmly warns that if he crosses any lines, she'll report it to the Duke. A threat that Alicia doesn't seem to take very seriously. Maya reminds her that she serves the Duke directly, leaving Alicia fuming. But Gray steps in, telling Maya not to worry. He vows that a commoner like him would never dare touch the noble Lady Alicia. A statement that seems to make Alicia's hand clench in frustration. Our boy immediately starts sweating, realizing he's said the wrong thing again. Alicia just turns away with an annoyed huff. She puffs out her cheeks, leaving Gray utterly confused by her reaction. He tries to explain he just wants her to be happy and knows his place. With a sigh, Maya seems to accept his earnest, if clumsy, explanation. She tells him she has one final question. If Alicia's difficult nature causes another public incident, what will he do? She admits his translation at the ball did help Alicia's reputation a little. But she warns him that his own position is now in jeopardy, asking if he's prepared to do it again. For Alicia, having a translator is a huge advantage, but it could also be her downfall. For a servant, it's a dangerous path that forces him into the line of fire. In high society, a commoner who talks back is easily discarded. Maya demands to know if he has the resolve to risk it all, or if his words are just empty. Gray, bless his heart, just says he doesn't understand the question, a response that leaves the head butler completely speechless. He panics, saying he doesn't want to be fired and that his actions were a mistake. He admits he's still not sure what the right move was, but he knows he wants people to see the real, kind Lady Alicia. His earnest words leave Alicia completely stunned. Even Maya is moved, calling him a truly kind and honest person. She agrees to his new role as Alicia's official translator, but she warns him that she'll be watching his every move. No pressure, kid. Just then, Alicia calls out his name. She grabs his arm, annoyed by his earlier claim that he'd never touch her. She drags him out into the quiet gardens and forces him to sit beside her on a bench, very, very close beside her. She mutters that she seems to listen to him more than Maya, a realization that leaves her blushing. She tells Gray that he's a truly strange person. She confesses she's never been able to express her true feelings, and that after her mother passed, she thought she'd die alone. Gray listens, completely captivated by her story. She tells him he's the only one who's ever seen the real her, and with a fiery blush, she declares she'll never let him go. Gray can hardly process her words. His mind flashes back to a life of being yelled at, of being judged and looked down upon, of always being utterly alone. He asks if it's really okay, admitting he's never felt needed before. The overwhelming emotion brings a tear to his eye. Alicia gets flustered, telling him not to cry like she's bullying him. With a sigh, she decides she can't just leave him like this, and pulls him into a comforting embrace. Our boy is now in a very advantageous position, a position that leaves them both blushing in awkward silence. He declares that he's feeling 1,000,000 times better. The next morning, a new day begins. Gray enters Alicia's room to wake her, but finds the young lady still fast asleep, a sight that leaves our boy a little flustered. She mumbles that it's morning already, and with a sleepy smile, she asks for a hug, a request that sends Gray's professionalism into a nosedive. He tells her to get up on her own, realizing this will be a daily trial, and so begins a typical day in the life of Lady Alicia. Gray once again tries to wake his difficult master, but she refuses to get up without a hug. He tries to maintain his composure, telling her to get up herself. She pouts, demanding that he carry her instead. With a sigh of defeat, he scoops her into his arms. She settles in comfortably, a little too comfortably for our boy's sanity. His face says it all. Later, she explains she was just tired from staying up late, and asks him to help with her hair once more. At the breakfast table, a new challenge awaits. Alicia's gaze falls upon a new decoration, a vase of flowers brought in by a new maid. Alicia notes how beautiful they are. Unlike the usual roses, the maid nervously explains they're from her hometown. Alicia asks where she's from, saying she's never seen such flowers. The poor girl immediately panics, thinking she's being scolded, but Gray steps in before she can remove them. He begins another translation, explaining Alicia was praising the unique flowers. The new maid can only stare in utter disbelief. Alicia tries to explain, saying it's just unforgivable for a noble not to know a flower's name. But Gray smoothly cuts in, explaining that she simply wanted to learn its name. Another day, another miraculous misinterpretation. The young maid looks up, her eyes sparkling with admiration. She explains that the flower is a gift for the young lady, which Alicia accepts with her usual stoicism. Gray watches on, another crisis successfully averted. Later, the maid catches up to him in the hall. She thanks him profusely, but he just plays it cool. She insists that his kindness meant the world to her. She confesses she's been lonely since coming to the capital and wanted to go home, but his kindness reminds her of her older brother. With a hopeful smile, she asks if they can talk again sometime. He happily agrees, saying he'd be glad to get to know his new colleague, May. She gets flustered, insisting he can just call her by her first name, but their friendly chat is interrupted by a very familiar, very jealous aura. Alicia appears, asking if he's trying to show off for his coworkers. May, completely oblivious, winks and tells him to call her by name when they're alone. Our boy can only stand there as his life flashes before his eyes. Alicia grabs him by the collar, demanding to know what's going on between them. Her silent fury speaks volumes. Later, things have calmed down, and Alicia spends her free time reading in the library. Gray watches over her, a faint blush on his cheeks. He decides to use this quiet time to study as well, hiding his face behind a book. He checks his pocket watch, announcing that it's time for lunch. Alicia closes her book, thanking him for the reminder. He can't help but ask what she was reading. With a sly smile, she puts a finger to her lips, saying it's a secret. But the book's title tells a very different story. A romance about a servant and a duchess. During lunch, the servants eat in their own dining hall, separate from their masters. Mori notes that Lady Alicia has clearly taken a liking to him. He adds that fewer servants are bad-mouthing her now, thanks to Gray. But Mori's attention is quickly stolen by May's innocent smile. Just then, the young maid herself approaches their table. She insists that Gray drop the formalities and just call her May. Our boy happily agrees, much to her delight. She beams, thanking him for being so friendly. She promises to talk with him more after her shift is over. Mori, however, gives Gray a very suspicious look. He accuses the kid of being a smooth operator, asking if May is his girlfriend. Defeated, Mori declares he'll find a new love, one who appreciates adult charm. He asks if Gray thinks the head butler, Maya, has that kind of charm. Gray just says she's scary, but Mori insists that's part of the appeal. He then goes on a very specific, very weird tangent about wanting her praise. A fantasy that is about to come to a screeching halt, because Maya has been standing right behind him the entire time. His soul practically leaves his body as she doubles his cleaning duties. She then turns to Gray, asking if his meal portion is too small. He gets flustered, admitting he got carried away by the delicious food. Maya reminds him to eat well so he has the strength to work, and places a generous slice of cake on his tray as a reward. Gray can only stare, completely surprised by the gesture. She tells him it's a mistake to think she's only a harsh person. Leaning in, she promises to reward all her diligent subordinates. And with that, she turns and walks away. Mori immediately bursts into tears, wailing about the injustice of it all. He lunges for the cake, but Gray is ready to defend his prize. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the villa, a piano lesson comes to an end. Alicia is completely drained, slumped over the keys in exhaustion. Later, Gray finds her fast asleep, worn out from her daily practice. She mumbles in her sleep, asking for praise. Gray can only smile, noting how hard she always works, but she sleepily demands even more. He thinks to himself that her efforts are all for her own sake. She suddenly asks if he really means it. He confirms, saying he's never met a woman more wonderful than her. Alicia argues there must be other, more beautiful ladies out there, but Gray calmly insists that's not the case. She continues, saying he'd surely choose another girl over her. She calls herself a difficult woman, much to Gray's exasperation. He decides to turn the tables on her. She looks up, wondering what he's about to ask. He kneels, takes her hand, and declares she's more special than anyone, a gesture that leaves her completely stunned. He gives her a warm, reassuring smile. With a furious blush, she declares that he is her number one. The confession leaves her a flustered mess as Gray asks if she's all right. She can only stammer, completely overwhelmed by her own words. So our boy simply scoops her into his arms and carries her gently toward her bed. She protests, saying it's still far too early to sleep, but he tells her it's okay to be selfish, and that rest will do her good. He promises to take full responsibility for waking her up later. Tucked in, she asks if he's really serious about taming a noble lady. He leans in, assuring her he's always serious when it comes to her. The proximity leaves her blushing and breathless. She asks him to stay by her side just a little longer. He offers to guide her into the world of dreams. She closes her eyes, ready for a wonderful romantic moment, and he begins by counting sheep. A true master of romance. His counting continues, one sheep at a time. Alicia, meanwhile, calls this a rather strange game, a word that leaves our boy completely confused. The two of them are caught in a moment of mutual awkwardness, until Alicia decides that a servant like him needs to be punished, and with surprising strength, she pulls him right into bed. Gray panics, worried Maya will find them, but Alicia says this is the perfect punishment. She looks up, asking if what she's doing is really so wrong, a question that leaves our boy a blushing, stammering mess. He finally relents, saying he'll allow it just this once, but she presses the issue, asking if he's absolutely sure it's not allowed. His strained expression says it all. This is a trial by fire. Later, it's time for the most important part of the day, the after-dinner bath. An activity Alicia wants to share, but Gray is having none of it. She puffs out her cheeks in a classic pout, but he insists that her cute face won't work on him this time. So she switches tactics, asking if he dares defy her direct order. He holds his ground, saying even threats won't make him budge. She stomps her foot in frustration, which is apparently against the rules. She claims she just needs help washing her hair so she doesn't get soap in her eyes. Then, she comes up with a brilliant idea. A blindfold. Gray is, to put it mildly, skeptical of this plan, and so he finds himself in a very compromising position. Even after the bath, she continues her advances. She confesses that she just wants to spend more time with him. Our boy can only gulp, his composure completely shattered. He shouts that he can't take this anymore. Alicia just leans in, whispering in his ear. She teases him, saying he's finally starting to see her as a woman. Gray can only ask if she's making fun of him. She tells him she's ready to give him her all, a statement that short-circuits our boy's brain completely. With a sly smile, she tells him she'll see him later, and leaves him standing alone in the hall. The door closes, leaving him to his thoughts. Gray tries to cool his head, realizing he's in way over his head. He finds Alicia waiting for him outside, looking rather stunning. He panics, asking why she isn't still in the bath. She pouts, complaining that he didn't come to get her. She grabs his hand, asking what he was doing out here. He explains he was practicing, a habit from his night school days. The mention of night school catches her completely by surprise. She realizes that's how he ended up working at her estate. But Gray says he's glad, because otherwise he'd never have met her. He declares that now he has the chance to protect her. His earnest words strike a chord deep within her. She absolutely loses it fangirling over her own servant. But she quickly snaps back to reality, a blushing mess, trying desperately to regain her composure. She tells him to forget the past and just focus on serving her. She reaches out, gently cupping his face, and leans in close, whispering that one day, but she pulls her hand away at the last second, leaving Gray completely confused by her actions. He panics, thinking she was trying to touch him, and apologizes for being sweaty. Alicia gets flustered, muttering about things he can't possibly understand. She turns and walks away, telling him to get some rest. Gray can only wish her a good night in return. He wonders if maybe he was a little too insensitive just now. A reminder of the gap between them. A noble lady and a commoner servant. Back at the villa, Alicia is lost in a storm of regret. She whispers her own name, gritting her teeth in frustration. She calls herself unforgivable for how she acted. The next day, a carriage arrives at the estate. Gray is suddenly interrupted by a frantic May. She breathlessly announces that Lady Alicia has a visitor. He asks for a name, but the flustered maid struggles to remember. The name she finally recalls sends a jolt through him. Limris Carnalera, a familiar, expensive shoe, steps onto the grounds. And there she is, the girl from the ball, already complaining about the wait. Alicia sits across from her, arms crossed and thoroughly unimpressed. She can't even be bothered to look at her uninvited guest. Limris immediately demands that Alicia get rid of Gray. She complains about Alicia's cold attitude after coming all this way to see a friend. A word that seems to completely confuse the Ice Queen. In fact, she doesn't seem to remember Limris at all. Limris has to remind her that they were classmates at the academy. The memory finally clicks, much to Alicia's surprise. Gray senses that their guest is in some kind of trouble, but Alicia seems to think her rival is doing just fine on her own. Limris then reveals the real reason she's here. Farah's family is facing ruin. The news leaves Gray completely stunned. Limris explains the harsh rules of their society's hierarchy. She gloats about how she took in Farah's family like a stray. Alicia sighs, telling her not to get carried away with the hero act. Limris fires back, blaming Alicia for embarrassing Farah in the first place. She breaks down in tears, demanding an apology for everything. Worn down by the drama, Alicia finally agrees to hear her out. With a sudden blush, Limris asks for her help in making up with Farah. Alicia has had enough of this drama, telling Limris to leave. She asks what kind of nerve her rival has, asking for a favor. But Gray steps in, suggesting she could sell Limris a favor. An idea that Limris seems to like, getting a little too close for comfort. Alicia looms over her, demanding to know what she's doing with Gray. Our boy gently pulls her back, telling Limris to stop teasing. With a sigh, Alicia agrees to help mediate things with Farah. But her assistance comes with a single, very specific condition. She holds out her hand, demanding that Limris become her servant. A proposal that leaves her rival completely stunned. Alicia taunts her, asking if she has any other friends to turn to. Defeated, Limris slowly reaches out her hand. She bites her lip, accepting her fate. And then she barks. I am not making this up. Alicia seems pleased, saying she prefers obedient pets. Limris, meanwhile, seems to be enjoying this a little too much. Gray can only stare, completely disturbed by this new dynamic. Alicia clarifies she's only doing this because she's worried about Farah. Our boy just stares blankly into the distance. He thinks to himself that noble ladies are a very unique breed. Later, they meet Farah in the city square. The timid girl greets them, with Limris now fanning Alicia like a servant. Farah is overjoyed to have received a personal invitation from her. Alicia plays it cool, though Gray knows he wrote most of the letter. She announces that today, she's going to cast a spell on Farah. Their destination is a high-end boutique. The entire staff bows as they enter, welcoming Lady Alicia. Farah is completely starstruck by the fancy shop. Alicia proudly explains that she personally trained the staff here. Farah asks if that means everything is made to Alicia's personal taste. Alicia explains the shop used to just chase fleeting trends, but she taught them to balance tradition with innovation. She challenged them to define their own brand identity. Farah listens, realizing she should trust her own judgment. Alicia tells her to cultivate an eye for true beauty. And for the first time, Farah truly understands. She looks at Alicia with pure, unadulterated admiration. Alicia then offers to buy her anything she wants, a gesture that leaves the poor girl completely flustered. So of course, Gray steps in to smooth things over. He explains that her words are often misunderstood. He rephrases her generous offer as a gift of friendship. Alicia can only blush in mortification as Farah beams. The answer, of course, is a resounding yes. Their next stop is a high-end salon, where a rather intense-looking stylist gets to work. Alicia gives him some very specific instructions. The man seems to understand her vision perfectly. He holds up his tools, ready to create a masterpiece. Farah, meanwhile, has no idea what's happening, but Alicia watches on with complete confidence. And the final result is absolutely breathtaking. Even the Ice Queen can't help but smile. She declares that Farah is now ready for high society. The girl is so happy she's practically glowing. With the makeover complete, it's time for dinner. They arrive at a restaurant just as elegant as they are. But their arrival doesn't go unnoticed. The two young ladies turn every head in the room, a fact that seems to infuriate at least one other guest. One of the patrons can't help but wonder who the other beauty is. The manager quickly greets Alicia, ready to lead them to a private room. A quiet, secluded table awaits them, away from prying eyes. Farah thanks Alicia profusely for the wonderful day. But Alicia cuts right to the chase, saying she has a reason for this meeting. A reason that has everything to do with their mutual acquaintance, Limris. She asks if Farah is aware of the dire situation Limris's family is in. The question clearly makes the young lady uncomfortable. She admits she doesn't want to be deceived by her anymore. She reveals a painful past of being an outcast in her own family. Alicia, ever the diplomat, says the matter is settled then. Just then, the first course arrives. A perfectly timed interruption to all this heavy conversation. Alicia says she owes Limris nothing, and that today was just a whim. Farah seems completely unconvinced by her cold words. Alicia sighs, telling the girl she still doesn't get it. Farah can only look up in utter confusion. Alicia asks what lesson she learned from their shopping trip. She tells her that what truly matters is her own will, that she has the power to earn trust on her own terms. She asks if Farah only relied on Limris out of desperation, and if she plans to simply latch onto Alicia next. The harsh truth brings a single tear to her eye, but through the tears she offers a heartfelt thank you, a reaction that even catches the Ice Queen off guard. Farah explains her father was furious about their family's honor, and in her fear, she almost abandoned her only friend. But she knows their friendship wasn't just an act. With new resolve, she declares she won't run away anymore, and Alicia can't help but crack a satisfied smile. With her mind made up, Farah stands to leave. Alicia gives her a wink, offering her help any time. Farah beams, promising to return the favor one day. As she departs, Gray watches his master from the side. He notes that Farah has grown, asking if this was Alicia's plan. She smiles, admitting he's surprisingly perceptive, but she adds that her perfect plan had another goal. She points out that Farah left an entire course meal untouched. Gray's eyes widen as he realizes her true intention. She explains that in this private room, no one will judge them. He can only smile, admitting he's no match for her schemes. She smirks, saying he's finally realized he's in her hands, and so Gray takes his seat across from her. The two of them share a quiet toast. But back at the estate, a new problem is brewing. Alicia's father, the Duke, has found her a new fiancé. He declares that this time she will finally be wed. Later, Alicia asks Gray how long he's been working here. She wonders aloud when he got so good at understanding her, but her good mood vanishes at the sight of her dinner. Gray asks if she hates vegetables, but she insists it's a matter of taste. Our boy just sighs, knowing what he has to do. He calls over the young maid, May. He explains that Lady Alicia seems to dislike the dish. He notes that stuffed vegetables are difficult to cut properly. He offers to cut it for Alicia, letting May try some for practice. Alicia is flustered, demanding to know what he means. With a sly smile, he prepares a bite for her. He holds it to her lips, telling her to open wide. Mortified, she eats it, shouting that she's done her part. She declares that Gray belongs only to her, and with a glare, she orders the other staff to leave at once. She then turns back to him, ready for another bite. He holds the fork steady as she leans in. She licks her lips in anticipation. He asks if it's good, but she claims one bite isn't enough to judge. With a blush, she asks for just a little more. She gets closer, her gaze locked on his. But their moment is shattered by the door slamming open. Alicia shouts, demanding to know who dares interrupt her time with Gray. A man's voice offers a less than sincere apology. It's her father, Duke Dylanos Lindy. Both Alicia and Gray are completely stunned by his arrival. She tries to play it off, saying she mistook him for a servant. The Duke's gaze falls on Gray, asking if he's a servant as well. Alicia quickly explains he's her personal attendant, but her father is skeptical. He asks if he just interrupted their special time. Well, this is a new level of awkward. Later, Maya confirms she's been reporting on Gray's progress. Gray nervously introduces himself to the head of the family. The Duke's gaze is sharp and unforgiving. He questions Alicia's judgment in hiring a boy her age. She argues back, saying talent has nothing to do with age or gender. but her father's expression remains cold. He asks if she's just being defiant without any real thought. He declares that leaving her in Maya's care was clearly a mistake. His harsh words leave Alicia speechless and hurt. She clenches her fist, telling him that's enough. She explodes, shouting that he's the one who abandoned her, and she tearfully asks how he can judge her after being gone for so long. She cries that Gray is the first person to ever truly see her, but her father just repeats the word, completely unmoved. He demands to know what she could possibly mean by that. Her heartfelt confession is met with a wall of ice. He says he's watched her fail, and now only one path remains. He's found her a new fiancé because nothing says I love you like an arranged marriage. Alicia is completely stunned by the sudden announcement. She asks what he's talking about, but he says the deal is already done. She argues that he can't just decide for her and that she has a right to choose. But he reminds her she's never cared before, always telling him to pick a suitor, a fact that leaves her gritting her teeth in frustration. She scoffs, saying this suitor will just run away like all the others. Gray recalls the long list of men who have fled from her reputation. But the Duke confidently declares that this time will be different. Alicia asks why he's so sure, admitting she's a difficult person. He says that may have been true in the past, but this new candidate is special. He explains the man knows all about her difficult nature and proposed anyway, a revelation that leaves both of them completely speechless. Gray steps in, suggesting they postpone this talk for another day. The Duke considers it, agreeing she needs time to prepare. He turns to leave, his point having been made, but he warns her to be ready for his next visit. After he's gone, Alicia asks Gray why he didn't object. Gray calmly states that he's against any marriage she doesn't want. She explodes, shouting that if that's true, he should have done something. But he simply tells her she doesn't understand the situation. His calm demeanor leaves her completely confused. He points to a butterfly resting on a nearby plant and asks if she's ever had to catch and eat a live insect. Well, that's one way to change the subject. Alicia looks utterly bewildered by Gray's unexpected question. Gray explains his past, living in the slums where food was scarce and life was harsh. Alicia stares at him, completely taken aback by his raw honesty. He quietly states that this was the world he had always known. Her expression shifts to one of shock and dawning comprehension. She argues that such a life couldn't be real, and that he'd be punished if his past was revealed. Gray explains that escaping abroad was impossible, and she couldn't possibly endure such a life. He adds that he's just a commoner, born to a terrible father and not worthy of her. He then states that she should look forward to her engagement, unless the suitor is truly unsuitable. Alicia turns away, her expression unreadable as she processes his words. She stands silently, looking out a window, lost in a storm of thought. Gray watches her from a distance, a sense of helplessness washing over him. He thinks about what his life would be like if he had been born a noble. 2 weeks pass in the villa, marked by a quiet tension. Gray enters Alicia's room, greeting her with his usual cheerful demeanor. Alicia is already awake and dressed, looking stunning and ready for the day. Gray is completely stunned, noting how she, who hated mornings, is already prepared. Alicia announces that today she'll be discussing the flower garden with May. Gray, surprised, offers to accompany her. But Alicia dismisses him, telling him to rest and not follow her around unnecessarily. Our boy is left completely bewildered by her sudden coldness. From then on, Alicia's interactions with Gray become minimal, almost cold. He finds her in the hall, looking distressed and clutching her chest. She quickly turns away, hiding her face behind a fur stole. Gray is stunned, realizing she's taking a bath alone. Alicia asks if he thinks she needs his permission to bathe, with May looking on nervously. Gray is surprised to see May, who quickly greets him. Alicia glares at May, telling her not to say anything unnecessary. May, terrified, quickly agrees. Gray watches as Alicia walks away, leaving him alone with May. Gray looks down, frustrated that he still can't understand Lady Alicia's true feelings. He clenches his fist, overwhelmed by the confusing situation. Maya's stern voice declares him completely unqualified as a servant. Gray stands with his back to her, looking utterly dejected. His eyes widen in shock and worry. Maya stares at him with an unyielding gaze. She warns that his misunderstandings could bring shame upon the Oslinda name. Gray looks down, offering a quiet apology. Maya tells him he harbors inappropriate desires for a servant and must reflect. Gray is distraught, feeling the growing distance between himself and Alicia. Maya announces that, regardless of his feelings, everything will be decided this weekend. She reveals that Lady Alicia's fiancé will visit the estate for a formal meeting. Gray is completely stunned by the news of Alicia's impending engagement. He forces a strained smile, claiming he looks forward to it. A beautiful rose garden is shown, as Alicia's name is mentioned. A man with long, flowing hair and a sword at his hip walks away. He smiles, expressing his eagerness to meet her. A hand reaches down to pick up a small, elegant item from the floor. Maya asks Alicia if she is ready for the day. Alicia stands in a stunning gown, looking elegant and poised. The carriage wheels turn, signaling an important arrival. May, the maid, excitedly announces the Duke's carriage has arrived at the main gate. The staff, including Gray and Alicia, gather in the grand hall. Alicia comments on the fiancé's eagerness, finding his lack of composure amusing. Her father, the Duke, remarks that she seemed reluctant to wait earlier. Alicia dismisses the idea of meeting someone she dislikes as a waste of time. She declares herself exhausted, only needing to meet her father. The fiancé, now fully visible, expresses sadness, saying he was looking forward to meeting her. Alicia looks utterly shocked, recognizing the man before her. The handsome fiancé smiles, greeting Alicia with a familiar ease. The handsome fiancé smiles, saying he rushed to meet Alicia as soon as possible. Alicia is completely shocked, asking if he is truly her fiancé, Grant. Grant turns, pleased that Alicia remembered him. He adds that he has always longed for her, and she's even more beautiful than he remembered. Gray watches, his expression unreadable. Alicia recoils, pushing away the rose Grant offered. She coldly states that she has no intention of accepting his flower. The maids in the background look on in shock. The Duke shouts Alicia's name, clearly displeased by her behavior. Grant, unfazed, tells the Duke not to worry, blaming himself for the sudden gesture. A close-up on the sword at Grant's hip. Gray realizes the significance of the sword, wondering who this man truly is. Grant smiles, adjusting his gloves, seemingly enjoying the drama. He then turns to the servants, apologizing for not introducing himself earlier. He introduces himself as Grant Dorimans, a knight instructor at the academy. The maids are completely starstruck by his charm and status. Gray is stunned, realizing Grant holds both a noble title and the rank of knight. Grant then adds that he is also Alicia's older cousin, who has pursued her since childhood. Gray and the maids are completely horrified by this revelation. Alicia, meanwhile, asks how old she was when Grant last saw her, given his longing for her. She asks if his behavior isn't a little perverted. The Duke shouts at Alicia, telling her she's being too rude. Grant just smiles, seemingly unbothered by her insult. He says it's fine as he expected such a reaction, but he asks her to believe one thing. He declares that he truly loves only her. Gray is completely shocked by Grant's bold confession. Grant adds that if he can marry her, he'll accept any reputation or scandal regardless of their age difference. Alicia watches him, her expression unreadable. She remains silent, her face shadowed. The Duke presses Alicia, asking if she sees how much Grant truly loves her. Alicia, fanning herself, dismisses the notion, claiming she just feels unwell. The Duke's imposing figure stands, with Gray and a maid observing from the side. Alicia gestures, stating she cannot comprehend the reason for such intense affection. The Duke sighs, covering his face in frustration at his daughter's stubbornness. Grant gently takes the Duke's hand, reassuring his uncle that there is no need to worry. Grant thinks that his approach is still insufficient to move Alicia's heart. Alicia looks on, a flicker of surprise in her usually cold gaze. A sudden text bubble demands everyone to wait. Gray steps forward, grabbing Grant's arm, interrupting the tense exchange. His hand firmly grips Grant's arm, a silent but clear intervention. Grant looks at Gray, calmly asking who he is. The Duke shouts at Gray, furious at the servant's audacity. Alicia looks completely shocked by Gray's unexpected interference. Gray explains that Lady Alicia is still reluctant about the engagement, and rushing her might close her heart. The Duke looks at Gray, surprised by the servant's insight. Grant bows slightly, acknowledging Gray's words. Alicia's eyes widen, a mix of surprise and confusion on her face. Gray, still bowing, states that for the engagement to succeed, Alicia must open her heart. The Duke considers Gray's words, pondering Grant's position and Alicia's true feelings. Grant smiles, admitting that Gray has indeed made a valid point. Grant thanks Gray for his precise advice, a subtle power play in the making. He then asks Gray for his name. Gray introduces himself as Lady Alicia's personal attendant. Grant looks at Gray with a knowing, almost predatory smile. Grant remarks on the rumors about the Ice Queen and her commoner servant at the ball. He muses that risking one's life for a master's honor is truly a servant's ultimate duty. Alicia looks at Grant, who reveals he had already discussed this with her father. Grant smiles, adjusting his cravat, stating he will deepen his relationship with Alicia. He then casually adds that the wedding ceremony will be held in 1 week. Grant, with a dazzling smile, presents an engagement ring, asking Alicia to marry him. Both Alicia and Gray are left utterly stunned by the sudden, bold proposal.